Today is the 6th of December, which marks the anniversary of one of the most important moments in Irish history, the signing, of course, of the Anglo-Irish Treaty in 1921. The treaty, of course, would end the War of Independence, however, would ultimately prove very controversial. After all, it upheld the partition of the country between North and South. In the South, the Irish Republic was not recognised. It would be the Irish Free State brought into being, part of the British Empire. Members of the Dáil would have to swear an oath of allegiance to the Crown. Now, many, of course, such as Michael Collins, believed that the treaty, it wasn't the freedom, he said, that all nations aspire to, it is the freedom to achieve it. He believed that the treaty was a stepping stone to the Republic and to Irish unity. However, many would disagree, believing that the treaty didn't go near far enough, ultimately leading to the outbreak of one of the most tragic periods of Irish history, the Irish Civil War, which broke out just a few months later in 1922. Now, of the 5 members of the Irish delegation who went to London to sit across from the negotiating table from the British government, led by the British Prime Minister Lloyd George, as well as the future Prime Minister Winston Churchill, of those 5 men, 4 are buried here in Glasnevin Cemetery. So today we're going to visit their graves. Now, we'll start with the man who was the leader, the chairman of the delegation, Arthur Griffith, the founder of Sinn Féin, of course, the president of Dáil Éireann, and a man with a very interesting headstone. It looks like a broken column, and that's very much intentional. It represents a life cut short, because he died in the midst of the Civil War in August of 1922, just a few months after signing the treaty, due to the stress and the strain of those months of conflict and strife. As well as that, he's buried right here, alongside a man who was with him in London signing the treaty, right here. This is the grave of Eamon Duggan, who was TD for County Dublin. Eamon Duggan as well, lawyer, politician. He would go on to serve in government in the years after the Civil War, but you can notice his headstone is quite modest. And yet, given his support for the politics of Arthur Griffith, buried in the one very nice plaza here in the cemetery. Now, the other 2 buried a bit further down into the cemetery, so if you'd like to follow me. Not too far away is the grave of George Gavin Duffy, another man who signed the treaty, buried beneath this lovely Celtic cross here alongside the O'Connell Tower. Now, he was a well-known judge and a barrister. In fact, he would later in his life become president of the High Court. And as I say, his Celtic cross here is a great example. It's almost like a work of art. You know, one of the most beautiful that you'll find in this particular part of Glasnevin Cemetery. Now, of course, the 4th man to sign the treaty buried here in Glasnevin is a man who needs no introduction in many ways, Michael Collins, the most visited grave here in Glasnevin. Now, famously, Michael Collins knew almost immediately after signing the treaty how divisive it would be. In fact, he wrote a letter just a few hours later in which he said, "Will anyone be satisfied with the bargain? Will anyone? I tell you this, early this morning I signed my own death warrant. I thought at the time how ridiculous. A bullet might just as well done the job 5 years ago." Of course, as we all know, those words, that he had signed his own death warrant, would prove very true less than a year later, when on the 22nd of August 1922, at Ballinablaw in County Cork, just a few miles from the place where he was born, he was shot and killed in an ambush by many would have considered comrades just a few months before.